A single message crossed the endless black of space. It was weak, broken, and filled with static, but the words inside that signal shook every listening station across the galaxy. They are coming. Humanity is coming. Then silence, no coordinates, no survivors, just fear. On the far side of the Orion expanse, in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, dozens of alien ambassadors sat frozen. Their eyes, large and glowing, turned toward the hologram still flickering in the center of the room. The voice inside that message belonged to a Threxian captain, one of the most powerful military species in the Outer Rim. Now, his voice was gone, replaced by empty static. The silence in the hall was heavy. Every race there remembered the name humanity. Once, long ago, the humans had been a part of the Council. Builders, explorers, scientists. They had shared their technology freely, brought new life to dying worlds, and spoken of peace. But when the Council betrayed them during the War of Exiles, humanity withdrew. They returned to their own region of space, behind the dark barrier of the Sol frontier, and they never came back. For 200 years, the humans had remained silent, until now. The Council's oldest member, the Grand Archivist of the Varn, leaned forward and whispered, "Who made contact?" A trembling officer answered, "It was the Threxian Dominion, Counselor. They destroyed a Terran research colony on the border. The humans declared it illegal and demanded apology. The Threxians refused." A low murmur spread through the chamber. The Varn's eyes dimmed. Then the Threxians have signed their own death, far away, beyond the rim of known space. The Terran Vanguard Fleet prepared for departure. In the command center of the flagship TFS Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Keira Holt stood before a massive holographic map of Threxian territory. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried the cold steel of experience. Around her, officers worked in silence, uploading target data, synchronizing ship movements, and activating long-range stealth systems. Humanity did not seek revenge. It enforced memory. They remembered the betrayals, the broken peace, the laughter of alien empires that once called them primitive. Keira spoke softly, her voice echoing through the bridge. They thought defiance meant strength. Let's remind them what humanity does to those who forget history. The room darkened as the fleet's engines charged. Through the viewing window, the stars stretched into long streams of white as the ships entered slipspace. For a moment, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. In Threxian territory, confusion spread. Their sensors showed nothing, no fleet, no signal, no warning, yet entire listening posts began to go offline. Outposts that had stood for centuries vanished without a trace. At the Threxian War Command, panic filled the chamber. "Report!" barked General Varrock, his wings twitching in agitation. "Sir, we've lost communication with 8 border colonies." An aide shouted. "No debris, no distress calls, just gone." Varrock slammed a clawed hand against the table. "Deploy the main fleet! If the humans want war, we'll give them one." But even as his order was given, hundreds of human reconnaissance drones were already inside Threxian space, invisible to detection. They mapped every planet, every defensive satellite, every warship movement. High above a red-skied planet, a cloaked human frigate hovered silently. Inside, Commander Rintavish watched the sensor feed. "Targets locked," he reported. Admiral Keira's voice came through the comms. "No warnings, no demands. Begin the operation." From the void, the Vanguard Fleet struck. Human ships emerged from hyperspace like silent lightning. In less than 30 seconds, orbital platforms were vaporized. Energy beams carved through battleships before their shields could rise. On Threxia's outer moons, observers saw a flash so bright it turned night into day. Then came the soundless wave of destruction. Everywhere, the same message appeared on broken Threxian screens. 3 words: Golden Final, Operation Remembrance, active. Within minutes, the first phase was complete. No civilians were harmed. No unnecessary targets destroyed. Only the military, Only those who had chosen war. The Threxian High Council demanded to know why the humans had not negotiated. But no reply came. Humanity's fleets vanished again, retreating into deep silence. For days afterward, the Threxians tried to rebuild their communication grid. But every attempt failed. Their satellites were gone, their warp lanes disabled, their supply routes erased. And then came the second message, this time broadcast to the entire galaxy. In the Galactic Council, the hologram of Admiral Keira Holt appeared again, calm and controlled. Her uniform bore the silver insignia of the Terran Union. Behind her stood the burning remains of a Threxian flagship. This is Admiral Holt of the Terran Vanguard Fleet. 2 weeks ago, the Threxian Dominion destroyed a peaceful human research colony. They ignored our warnings. They mocked our dead. Now their fleets are gone. Let this be a lesson. Humanity does not seek conquest. But we do not forgive betrayal. Her image flickered out. For a long moment, no one in the council dared to speak. Even the proudest empires of the core worlds lowered their gaze. Humanity had spoken not with words, but with silence and fire. Far beyond the council's reach, the vigilant dawn sailed through the black. On the bridge, Admiral Keira Holt stared at the stars. Each one seemed brighter, sharper, like eyes watching her fleet. Her second-in-command stepped forward quietly. "Admiral, should we pursue the survivors?" Keira shook her head. "No, let them live. Let them remember." Outside, the fleet moved as one, hundreds of silent giants gliding through the cosmic dark, leaving only fading trails of light behind. Somewhere, across 100 alien worlds, whispers spread like wildfire. They made humanity angry, and humanity erased them. The galaxy fell into uneasy silence after the destruction of the Threxian fleets. But that silence did not bring peace. It brought fear. Every transmission that passed through Council space carried whispers of the same question. Where are the humans now? No one knew. Their fleets had vanished like ghosts. Their engines left no trace. Yet entire sectors reported strange sensor echoes, shadows moving in the dark, vanishing before identification. In deep space, the Terran Vanguard Fleet advanced through the void. No lights, no communication bursts, no signals, only silent ships gliding across the stars. Their surfaces reflecting nothing. Every human warship was wrapped in adaptive stealth fields, making them invisible even to quantum sensors. On the bridge of the TFS Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Keira Holt stood still, her eyes fixed on the holographic map before her. The Threxian systems blinked in red. Thousands of dots marked enemy installations, supply routes and defense stations, but none of them knew they were already being watched. Commander Rin Tavish approached. "Phase 2. Recon complete, Admiral. We've mapped every fleet movement. They're trying to regroup near Threxia Prime." Keira nodded slowly. "Good. They're gathering their strength. That means they still think they have a chance." Around her, officers worked in silence. Every heartbeat of the ship's AI pulsed through the deck, steady, precise, cold. Then Keira gave her quiet command. "Prepare the infiltration units." No warnings this time. Across the Threxian border, the storm began again. Human stealth drones slipped through the void, entering planetary orbits unnoticed. They transmitted silent data streams, power grids, communication nodes, orbital defenses, all fed directly to the Terran Fleet's command, AI. Minutes later, human warships appeared in orbit above the Threxian defense moons. They didn't decloak. They didn't announce themselves. The first strike was invisible, a burst of coded light that disrupted every enemy sensor. Then came the second, a precision bombardment that vaporized every orbital cannon in one coordinated blast. No sound, no warning, only blinding light. Within 3 minutes, the Threxian defense grid, built over 2 centuries, ceased to exist. On Threxia Prime, panic spread through the streets. Civilians looked up at the sky and saw distant flashes like dying stars. No one knew what was happening, only that their communications had gone dark. In the Central War Command, General Varrock shouted orders, "Activate planetary shields." Mobilize all units. But the systems didn't respond. Power grids were offline. Orbital relays dead. The human fleet had already cut every connection. One officer trembled as he looked at his screen. "Sir, they're inside our orbit." Varrock turned toward the window, above the clouds. He could see faint silhouettes, massive shapes moving in silence, their forms blending with the night sky. Human warships. The next moment, the ground shook as kinetic strikes hit distant mountains. The horizon lit up in white fire. Varrock sank into his seat, his voice breaking. "Gods help us. They're not fighting. They're erasing us." Back aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Keira watched the operation unfold through her tactical display. Hundreds of red markers disappeared one after another. Enemy outposts destroyed. Fleet beacons silenced. Command ships vaporized. Her communication officer turned to her. "Admiral, the Threxian leadership is broadcasting surrender messages. Shall we accept?" Kira's expression didn't change. No response. "They ignored our peace before. Let them understand the cost now." The officer hesitated, then nodded. The command deck remained quiet except for the hum of engines. In the background, the AI voice reported in a calm tone. "All enemy fleets neutralized. Civilian zones untouched. Mission proceeding according to Terran directive." Keira walked toward the viewport. She stared into the dark, the stars glowing faintly through the blue haze of Threxia's upper atmosphere. "They'll remember this silence," she said softly. "It will haunt them more than our words ever could." As the last human ship left orbit, the burning light of the Threxian capital faded behind them. Ash drifted across the skies like falling snow. The war was over before it had even begun. No grand battles, no negotiations, just quiet, unstoppable precision. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. Worlds that once laughed at humanity now trembled. The message was clear: do not provoke the species that came from Earth. Humanity had become a myth again, not of weakness, but of power, a silent force that struck only once, but never needed to strike twice. The Threxian Dominion was burning. Half their fleets were gone, and their defenses shattered. Yet even as fear spread through their worlds, pride still whispered in their ears. From the ashes of defeat, they began to rebuild. Across Threxia Prime, engineers worked day and night. Massive shipyards glowed with blue fire as new warships were forged. Generals screamed orders through damaged comms. The Dominion's High Council gathered in their underground citadel and swore vengeance. "Humanity has gone too far," said General Varrock, his voice echoing through the dark hall. "We will strike back and show them that Threxia does not bow." A chorus of defiance rose from the council. They had lost fleets, but not their pride. They didn't understand that pride was the very weapon humanity always destroyed first. At the edge of the Threxian system, the Terran Vanguard Fleet remained in perfect formation. The stars ahead flickered faintly, reflecting on the black hulls of human ships. No movement, no light, only the steady hum of power waiting to be unleashed. Inside the TFS Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Keira Holt studied the enemy reports. "They're gathering everything," said Commander Rintavish quietly. "All surviving fleets are converging near their homeworld." Keira didn't look up. Her expression was calm, almost emotionless. "Let them come. It will save us the time of chasing them." The AI voice of the ship responded in its usual cold tone. "Enemy reinforcements detected. Estimated total strength, 3,087 vessels. Time to engagement, 6 hours." The bridge fell silent. No one was afraid, only focused. Every officer aboard knew what humanity's fleets could do. 6 hours later, the dark of space lit up like dawn. The Threxian Grand Armada emerged from hyperspace, rows upon rows of heavy warships, their cannons glowing blue, their engines roaring. The sheer scale filled the void, stretching from horizon to horizon. "Fire at will," ordered General Varrock. Thousands of plasma beams streaked toward the human positions. The space between stars turned into a sea of light, but when the light faded, nothing. The beams had passed straight through empty space. The human ships were gone. Where are they? Varrock shouted. Before his words even finished, reality itself seemed to tear open. Behind the Threxian fleet, human ships phased into existence, silent, black, and blindingly fast. Multiple warp breaches behind us, cried an officer. But it was already too late. Human dreadnoughts opened fire in perfect coordination. Their weapons were not plasma, not missiles, but beams of compressed kinetic energy, invisible, faster than light. Each shot tore through armor like paper. Entire battle lines vanished in seconds. Varrock's command ship shook violently. His screens went dark one by one. Through the hull, he saw explosions ripple across the void. Massive Threxian cruisers breaking apart, their reactors burning like newborn stars. He screamed orders, but no one could hear him. Back aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Keira watched through the tactical display. "Fleet command to all units," she said softly. "Execute counter-strike pattern Delta." Immediately, hundreds of smaller human ships accelerated, weaving through the battlefield like hunting falcons. They moved faster than enemy targeting systems could track, striking, vanishing, striking again. No wasted fire, no chaos, only perfect control. The AI reported calmly, enemy formation collapsing. 90% casualties confirmed. Commander Tavish exhaled slowly. "They're finished, Admiral." Kira's gaze stayed on the burning map. "No, Commander. They're learning what the word finished truly means." Moments later, the Hammerfall, a Terran heavy destroyer, entered the fray. Its main cannon, the Solar Lance, fired once. A single blinding beam cut through 3 Threxian battleships and pierced their flagship clean through. The shockwave tore open the void itself. When the light faded, silence returned. Only a handful of Threxian ships remained, damaged, drifting, helpless. Their transmissions echoed through the comms. Desperate cries, surrender calls. "Silence!" Keira gave her final command. "End it." Human destroyers surrounded the survivors, disabling engines but leaving life support active. There would be no executions, no cruelty, only a single message transmitted across the Threxian network. "You chose this war. Humanity ends it." Hours later, as the last debris floated among the stars, the humans gathered their fleets again. The Vigilant Dawn moved forward, its engines glowing faintly like the eye of a predator in the dark. Commander Tavish looked out into the empty space. "Admiral, will they ever try again?" Keira answered quietly. "Not this generation. Maybe not the next. But if they do..." She turned toward the endless stars. "We'll be waiting." Behind her, the human fleet disappeared into slip space, silent, disciplined, unstoppable. The galaxy had witnessed the counterstrike, and it would never forget it. The war was over. What remained of the Threxian Dominion drifted in silence through the ashes of its own pride. From orbit, Threxia Prime looked almost peaceful, a dead world glowing faintly under the light of its dying sun. Once it had been the heart of an empire. Now it was a graveyard of glass and dust. The Terran Vanguard Fleet hung in low orbit above the ruined planet. Massive ships floated motionless, their hulls reflecting the pale orange light below. To the Threxians watching from underground shelters, those ships looked like silent gods staring down in judgment. Inside the command bridge of the TFS Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Keira Holt stood before a cracked holographic map. Red markers blinked across Threxia's surface, remains of their military installations, now reduced to ruins. Commander Rin Tavish approached quietly. "Admiral, surface resistance has ended. We've confirmed the destruction of all weapons facilities. No remaining fleet signatures detected." Keira didn't answer immediately. She stared at the glowing dots, then at the fading blue line that represented the human fleet's position. "And the civilians?" "Alive," Tavish replied. "They've surrendered. We avoided population centers, as per directive." Keira nodded once. "Good. Then it's time." The Vigilant Dawn's hangar doors opened, releasing waves of human marines and reconnaissance drones toward the surface. They descended through clouds of smoke and fire, landing among the broken ruins of Threxia's grand cities. Once proud marble towers now lay shattered across blackened streets. The great statues of Threxian rulers were nothing but headless stone. The Marines moved in silence. No cheering, no hatred, only duty. Their helmets reflected the burning sky as they collected data cores, rescued prisoners from underground cells, and secured the archives of the Dominion's government. Inside one of those ruins, a human officer found something unexpected. A holographic recording of the Threxian Council's meeting before the war. The aliens had laughed as they destroyed the human research colony. They had called it a lesson in dominance. When the recording was shown to Admiral Keira, she said nothing. She only turned to her comms officer and gave a single order: prepare a transmission. Minutes later, the galaxy went silent again, not because of fear, but because every communication channel, every holonet screen, every relay station across the known systems suddenly activated at once. A hologram appeared, not of a god, not of a conqueror, but of a woman. Admiral Keira Holt stood tall, her uniform marked with ash and light scars. Behind her, the burning skyline of Threxia Prime painted the sky red. Her voice was calm, clear, and cold as iron. This is Admiral Keira Holt of the Terran Vanguard Fleet. 2 weeks ago, the Threxian Dominion attacked a peaceful Terran research colony, a place where our people studied life, not war. They ignored our warnings. They mocked our patience. And now their fleets, their weapons, and their pride are gone. Humanity does not seek conquest. We are builders, explorers, and allies to those who value peace, but to those who bring us death, we bring silence. She paused, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. The flames behind her flickered across her armor like the reflection of a dying sun. Let this serve as a message to all who watch. We are not the monsters you fear, but we are the justice. You will never escape. The hologram faded, leaving only the echo of her final line. Humanity does not forgive betrayal. Across the galaxy, reactions spread like wildfire. Some worlds shut down their borders. Others swore allegiance to the Terran Union. Even the mighty Council, once arrogant in its unity, held emergency meetings to discuss the human problem. But none dared to act. They had seen what humanity could do, not through chaos, but through order. Not with rage, but with perfect precision. Back aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Keira watched the stars through the command deck window. The planet below was quiet now. Commander Tavish approached again, his voice low. "Admiral, what should we do with what's left of them?" Kira's eyes didn't move from the view. "We rebuild their world. We leave them alive so they remember who we are." Tavish nodded slowly. "Mercy, Admiral?" She turned toward him, her gaze sharp. "No, memory." As the human fleet turned away from Threxia, the last transmission from the surface echoed through space, the voice of a Threxian child, crying out in fear and awe. The humans came from the stars, and the stars obeyed them. The message repeated, again and again across open frequencies, until it faded into static. The galaxy would remember humanity didn't conquer for glory, they conquered for peace. And that peace was built on the ashes of those who had forgotten respect. The message from Admiral Keira Holt spread faster than light. Every world, every colony, every station that received it watched it in silence. When the hologram faded, fear took its place. The galaxy had seen wars before, but this was different. This was precision, not chaos. Purpose, not rage. Humanity had not shouted victory. They had simply ended a civilization, then walked away. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, the atmosphere was heavy. 1,000 eyes stared at the flickering replay of Kira's message, her calm words echoing through the vast marble dome. They mocked our patience. And now their fleets, their weapons, and their pride are gone. When it ended, no one spoke for a long moment. The silence was almost painful. Finally, the elder of the Van broke it. "We told you," he said softly, his silver tendrils swaying. "We told you not to provoke them," the Drath ambassador hissed. "We did not provoke." The humans act like gods, destroying entire fleets for a single colony. The Van Elder turned his luminous eyes toward him. Then pray they never decide to act like devils. A chill passed through the room. The Council had always believed in balance. No single species was allowed to dominate the others. That was why humanity had once been exiled. Their growth, their ideas, their ambition had frightened the rest. But now, after 2 centuries of silence, they had returned, not as outcasts, but as something greater. They had technology beyond the Council's understanding, weapons that ignored shields, ships that bent space without warning, and discipline that no other species could match. The Council's High Chairwoman, a pale figure with crystal eyes, stood and looked around the chamber. We must decide. Do we call them to answer for their actions, or do we remain silent? The hall erupted in argument. Some demanded that humanity be confronted. Others whispered that such an act would be suicide. The Van Elder simply said, if you summon them, they will come. And if they come, they will finish what they started. Meanwhile, across 100 worlds, fear became action. Armies mobilized quietly. Fleets began secret construction, but not against each other, against the possibility of humanity. Every race remembered the sight of Threxia burning, the silence of its skies. Children grew up hearing one name spoken in whispers, humans, and on the far edge of the galaxy, in their hidden system of Sol, humanity listened. Inside the Terran Command Citadel, deep beneath the mountains of Mars, Admiral Keira Holt stood before the United Council of Earth. Her report was calm and direct. The Threxian Dominion has been neutralized. Their infrastructure is destroyed, but civilian population remains stable. No further hostilities detected. The Terran president, an older man with tired eyes, nodded slowly. And the Galactic Council's reaction? Fear, Keira said simply. They're holding emergency meetings. They don't know what we'll do next. And what will we do next, Admiral? Keira looked out the window, where Earth's blue curve shone beyond the glass. We wait. Let them remember. Let them understand that humanity only strikes when forced. Her words carried weight. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were watching. Back in the Galactic Council, the chairwoman stood before the gathering once more. Then we agree, she said finally. We will not challenge humanity. We will open communication, but only if they choose to speak first. The room fell quiet. Even the proudest species, the ones who once mocked humanity, said nothing. Across the chamber, the Van Elder looked toward the empty holographic space where Keira's image had once stood. They warned us centuries ago, he whispered. When humanity rises again, the stars themselves will kneel. As the meeting ended, the Council's great banners lowered to half-height, a silent symbol of fear and respect. Beyond the Council's reach, human ships moved through the dark, unseen but everywhere. They did not conquer. They observed, they waited. And in every world's night sky, when people looked up, they wondered, are they watching us now? Admiral Keira, back aboard the Vigilant Dawn, watched those same stars from her command chair. The Threxian War was over, but her fleet remained on standby, always ready. Commander Tavish approached quietly. Admiral, the galaxy fears us now. She smiled faintly. Good. Fear keeps them alive. The stars reflected in her eyes like tiny flames. She turned back to her console, her voice calm but cold. Prepare the fleet for standby orbit. The next message won't come from us. Outside, the Vigilant Dawn drifted silently through the darkness, a shadow against the stars, and in the endless quiet of space, one truth spread through every mind that remembered Threxia's fall. You can anger gods and live, but never make humanity angry twice. Years passed after the fall of the Threxian Dominion. The scars of war still marked their worlds. Cities turned to glass, oceans poisoned by fire, and skies that no longer held stars. But from those ashes, something unexpected began to grow. Human ships returned, not as conquerors, but as builders. They came quietly, without banners or demands. Massive terraforming cruisers descended through grey clouds, releasing waves of nanodust that cleansed the air and purified the ground. Drones rebuilt water systems, restored energy grids, and revived the broken core of Threxia Prime. To the surviving Threxians, watching from the ruins, it was a miracle, one performed by the same beings who had destroyed them. For the first time in generations, rain fell on Threxia, and as the dark clouds parted, the reflection of human ships shimmered above, glowing like guardian stars. In the center of the new capital, a vast hall was built, not for war but for memory. Its walls were lined with silver and glass, and in the center stood a monument, a human hand and a Threxian claw, locked together, rising toward the light. Admiral Keira Holt stood before it, her reflection dim in the polished floor. Commander Tavish joined her quietly. "They rebuilt faster than expected," he said. "They learned," Keira replied. "Pain is a better teacher than pride." Around them, Threxian workers moved with silent discipline. They no longer wore their old uniforms. Their banners now carried a new symbol, a ring of stars encircling a single human hand. Tavish looked up at the monument. "Do you think they forgive us?" Keira shook her head slowly. "Forgiveness doesn't matter. Understanding does." Later that night, Keira stood on a balcony overlooking the shining city. The air was warm, the streets quiet, and for the first time in many years, there was peace. A group of Threxian children passed below, pointing at the sky, high above. The Terran fleet floated like a halo of silver lights. To them, those ships were not symbols of fear anymore. They were guardians, protectors of a fragile peace. Keira smiled faintly. "That's how it should be," she whispered. "Power without purpose is just destruction." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the message of Threxia's rebirth spread. Other civilizations watched with awe and confusion. The humans had not enslaved the Threxians nor taken their resources. Instead, they had rebuilt them stronger than before. The Galactic Council sent an envoy to Earth, humbly requesting dialogue for the first time in 2 centuries, in the Grand Chamber of the Terran Union. The envoy bowed deeply. "We seek understanding," it said. "We seek peace." The Terran president simply replied, "You had it once. Keep it this time. No threats, no conditions, just truth." From that moment, the galaxy changed. Old enemies began speaking again. Trade routes reopened. Worlds once afraid to breathe under human watch now dared to grow again. But behind that peace, every race knew one unspoken rule: never challenge the humans. Back aboard the TFS Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Keira watched the stars one last time. The Threxian world was alive again, its cities glowing with light. The same place that had once screamed in terror now sang with hope. Commander Tavish stood beside her. "So, what now, Admiral?" Keira smiled softly. "Now we disappear again. The galaxy doesn't need to see us, only remember us." The ship's engines rumbled to life, bathing the deck in blue light. As the fleet ascended, the people of Threxia looked to the sky and watched the ships vanish into the darkness. One Threxian elder, standing on the rebuilt council steps, whispered to her students, "The humans returned not to rule, but to remind." Her voice trembled with emotion. "Never awaken the fury of humankind, but never forget their mercy either. Far beyond the stars, deep in the silence of space, the human fleet drifted once more, unseen, unmatched, eternal. They were no longer the outcasts of the council. They were the guardians of a balance built on respect and memory. And somewhere, among the glowing constellations, one message burned brighter than any star. The last civilization that defied humanity is now alive, because humanity chose to let them live. The galaxy had learned. The legend of humanity was no longer one of rage. It was one of power, justice, and peace earned through fear. For in the end, it wasn't destruction that made humanity divine. It was the choice not to destroy again.